everybody, and welcome to another episode of YMTGT Taps. I'm Joey Pasco.
And I'm Big Head Joe.
So we're back again, not a surprise, but we have a lot to talk about since the last episode. We had the pre-release, we have New Standard, we have some Magic the Gathering, like we always have.
Grump Prix New Jersey.
Yes, Grump Prix New Jersey. So let's kick things off with that just to get it out of the way. Over the weekend, Grand Prix New Jersey was a limited event with Ravnica Allegiance, and someone asked on Twitter to Wizards where the coverage was. Roman Fusco actually was who tweeted to Wizards, and Wizards responded that they were doing away with the written coverage, except for basically important updates at the end of the tournament, like on Sunday. I could actually see the actual tweet says, "We're adjusting our coverage for tournaments at Magic Fests. From New Jersey forward, instead of live written coverage, we'll be posting critical end-of-tournament information on Sunday evening." So basically, we're not going to cover it. We'll just tell you what happened.
And they told us that because someone tweeted at them?
Yes. This was in a reply. This was just in a reply. This is ridiculous. This is why it's...
All right, now I can see why people are mad, because... Yeah. Whoa, all right, what the hell? That's messed up.
So, no official announcement. And this basically just, comes out in a reply to a tweet. Like, it's not even... I understand if they were to announce it on Twitter and nowhere else, I think people might have a problem with just that because, hey, not everyone's on Twitter. But to just announce it in a reply...
That's a big change. Like, that's the kind of change you post an announcement when you do that sort of thing. You post an announcement on the main page. Even if it's a short announcement...
Sure.
Hey, even if it's as long as the damn reply.
Right.
Right? Like, it's like just make an official announcement. Like, okay, I understand not having the on-camera coverage, maybe, but I don't even like that. But I cannot even fathom not having written coverage for your event.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people are upset. And the other thing about this is because of the nature of the response in terms of it being a reply through Twitter, maybe there's a lot of room for misunderstanding. In this case, it just sounds like they aren't covering anything because that was the way I think most people took it. And I kind of had to look back at it myself and try to parse exactly what they're trying to say because they didn't elaborate. And it's become like this big controversy. So if they're not going to cover tournaments, could they at least let people know? I think the bigger problem here is poor communication. Like they're constantly either not communicating things or communicating things in such a vague way. Apparently, now we're going to link this article in the show notes. Hipsters of the Coast reached out to Wizards and actually got some response from Blake Rasmussen about the event. One of the other parts of this controversy was that the top 8, the winner didn't receive a trophy. There was a trophy there for photos, but it was actually not a Grand Prix New Jersey 2019 trophy. It was like a Grand Prix Vancouver 2018 trophy. That apparently was just kind of like a shipping snafu or something. Like he's getting a trophy.
Okay, well, that's good.
It's just that was like a separate thing. So I'm going to go ahead and dismiss the trophy issue because that sounds like it was not really part of this. They're not getting rid of trophies. They're just getting rid of coverage. But what Blake clarified was that Wizards did not actually announce anything regarding video coverage, and they aren't announcing anything about it at this time. Besides the Mythic Championships and the Mythic Invitational, we have not announced our streaming schedule for the year yet. So that sort of makes things feel a little bit better because maybe everyone's misunderstanding. But just the fact that they haven't announced the streaming schedule for the year yet at this point, we're at the end of January.
Or it started. The year, it's already... Yeah,
right.
Like, there was already an event. Oh, we didn't have the schedule ready, so we didn't do any coverage. No, that's not it. No.
No, they announced their coverage for this event in a tweet to Roman Fusco. Didn't you see it?
No, I did not. I absolutely did not. Now, listen, I think that, Grand Prix New Jersey is, way more important than Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. But they had at least a camera crew there. You know what I mean? Like,
true.
And if they didn't have a camera crew on hand, somebody might have wrote down the events that happened and posted them live. Because we have this thing called Twitter that allows for virtually like the easiest instant coverage. You could just have a Twitter account to be coverage. I mean, you don't even need, you can just have somebody sitting there with their phone tweeting about the event, and that would count as coverage of the event. Just use the hashtag, post the updates live, and it's a live feed of the coverage, and you don't need to make a website article. As long as you announce that that's what you're going to do, how hard is that? How hard is that just to have somebody there with Twitter? We have Twitter.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem that I have is that they had to have seen all the concern being expressed. I'll use the word concern. But it seems like I think they just responded in a chain to the tweets. There's no real announcement here. They just seem to ignore all the concern.
Well,
the
thing
feedback.
is, like the one thing you can't do as like a company, as like a business, is just, you know, gut response to something as it's happening. If you are a company like that, they have to craft a response. If there is controversy, you know, like getting the person on the other end of their Twitter account fired up and starts going off on people.
No, you're absolutely right.
You know, like they can't do that. It's just not professional. So like they have to really have time to craft a response. And I hope they take the time to craft said response, because this warrants one.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just a matter of how much time is reasonable, because if this started coming out on Saturday and Sunday, I would think a response could be crafted in time for an announcement Monday.
Was it not posted this morning?
So, well, today's Tuesday. I haven't looked this morning. So Roman's tweet was January 26th. That was Saturday. And the response was also Saturday. So all of the community response came about on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So you had plenty of time, you know, Monday to say, okay, what do we say?
They could have been watching Takeover Phoenix and the Royal Rumble. They could have been really busy. I mean, I was doing all those things, so I barely saw any of this. So this is crazy, and I don't like it. I think that limited coverage, I know a lot of people aren't too wild about limited coverage. I know you probably wouldn't care about limited video coverage if it were there, you know.
Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have watched it.
No, you wouldn't have watched it. But these events, they have the word friggin', well, they don't do, they still call them Grand Prix, right? They're called Magic Fests featuring the Grand Prix, right?
I believe that's correct. That's the last that I remember.
So it doesn't feel very grand to me if we're not even going to cover it, you know? Like, it's kind of like...
It's just a pre.
Yeah, it's just a pre. Just a regular pre. Regular pre. They'll be grand later, we promise. We'll make an announcement in a month or so after 4 of them have passed. Oh, boy. So...
Yeah, I just think Wizards could do a better job of communicating in advance when they're making these kinds of changes. They have to anticipate that the community is not going to be happy about certain things, and they can get out ahead of it by just saying, like, hey, this is what we're doing and this is why. Like, they don't need to explain every little thing to us in terms of, I mean, they're a business, but in a funny way, the community, at least in this case, I feel like we're sort of the shareholders. I know we're not really, but this isn't a kind of, this isn't just like a regular product. It's something that has a lot of passionate people involved and making their livelihood out of this game. And so I think when you've got a community like this, you kind of have to look at us like we're shareholders and say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing what we believe is best for the game by allocating these funds that we normally would have allocated towards coverage. We're going to put them towards this other thing that is really cool. And everybody, you know, can say, okay, cool, I get it. Like, this does sound really cool. I'll miss coverage, but I see what they're doing, or whatever. You know, maybe that's a more reasonable response than some people may give. They may have a different opinion, but at least we know what they're doing. To have it come out in a response to a tweet and then nothing else, it feels like they don't care, and I know that's not true because
you're mincing words a little bit. I'm not going to mince words. They've endured 25 years of our nerd rage. They should know by now that nerd rage is a real phenomenon. It's like still not believing in climate change at this point. It's real. It's happening, and it's not climate change. It's global warming because we're not mincing words. So they knew this was going to happen. Like any change that takes away is going to be met with resistance, even from people like you who don't really care about the thing they're taking away.
Right.
It's the idea that they're taking it away and acting as if it doesn't matter to us, because it does matter to us.
Yeah. I mean, to be totally clear, I'm not even upset they're taking it away. I'm upset that they announced it in a reply to a tweet. That's my problem. Is that to me the announcements?
Why? Tell us why.
So that's I think they can do better.
Agreed. 100%.
So let's move on.
Yes, let's. Pre-release. I played in a paper pre-release. You did not, but you played in some of the arena ones. Yes or no?
I played my pre-release on Arena. I can talk about it for about 15 seconds. I think that's all it will take.
Do it.
I built a Jund deck. I had, I think, pretty solid cards, but the mana base killed me. I had no fixing. I texted Joe. He said, "What fixing do you have?" I said, "None," and he told me to cut a color. I tried cutting a color, and I just literally had no more playables. I was like, "No, I gotta play Jund," and so I just lost and then jumped into new standard. So I don't have much to contribute to the pre-release talk. I was just too excited to play new standard.
No doubt. I will say this. I will say that playing in Limited, I played a bunch of Sealed on the client on Arena. Mm-hmm. And then I played in one paper pre-release as well. I can't remember exactly what I played. I think I played Rakdos, and I did horribly. I went 1-3. My first round was amazing. I had a flawless victory. I won 2-0, did not take a point of damage.
Wow.
I'm looking at my thing here, and my side, me, is blank on both games. So I did that, which was pretty cool. In round 2, I got to give a shout out to Kenny, because Kenny, not your Kenny, he's our Kenny, but he's your Kenny because he lives where you live.
Right.
Not Kenny from Baltimore, but the Kenny I played against. He got the Daggercaster Blade Brand combo off on me.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, it was so funny. He goes, "Oh man, you're going to hate me." And he plays it, and I go, "Yeah!" So loud that like everyone like stopped and looked. And I was like, "He got the combo!" Like I was like so happy about it. I was like, I bet you didn't expect that complete opposite of tilt reaction, did you? Like you didn't expect me to cheer you, right? He was like, "No." Because I was so excited. I was like, "You lived the dream." He's like, "I really don't care what happens for the rest of this event. Like, I'm happy that happened."
Right.
He's like, "I just all I wanted to do." Because I had it in my deck a couple times, and I never could get them both in the same hand. Or, like happened last night, I got them both in my hand at the same time, and Arena didn't hold priority with the trigger on the stack.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that.
Twice. So I had to remember, and I'm just telling you folks, if you have a Daggercaster and a Blade Brand, hit that control button before you cast the Daggercaster, because it should. I mean, if you have mana up and you have an instant in hand, it should stop before the resolution, I would think.
I think you have to. I think it's if you're holding priority, you're not passing priority to your opponent. You need to hold it. I think that's the same way it is, I think, on Moto. So in this case, just for anyone who doesn't remember what the cards do, Daggercaster has like the Chain Whirler effect. It comes enters the battlefield and deals 1 damage to each opponent and 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. And then Blade Brand is an instant that target creature gains Death Touch until end of turn, draw a card. So you can basically Plague Wind your opponent's side of the board, just completely, wipe their side of the board with that 2-card combo. And but you do need to hold priority because you're responding to your own ability. Because if you pass priority and your opponent then passes priority, it resolves. So that's what happened. Is like you played the Daggercaster, and that ability, I guess, went on the stack without went on the stack and gave your opponent the opportunity to respond, and then they passed, and you couldn't respond, and it happened, right?
Yeah. So that's good to know. So anyway, just make sure you hold priority if you want to make that happen, because that's the only way you can make it happen, apparently.
But that's a cool combo. I do think that's it's neat to have that. I'm sure a lot of people won't think it's neat, but I think it's cool.
I had it written on the notes, but we were so pressed to even get through our 10 that I didn't mention it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then round 3, I played against Andy, and his deck was just vastly greater than mine, and he just beat me decisively in 2 games. And I was able to go figure out some of my comic book subscription stuff next door. I had a lot of time for that, so that was the benefit of that. And then the start of round... Huh?
It's win-win.
Yeah.
He got to win, and you got to go look comics. So
I needed the time, so it was good. I even said that. I was like, hopefully you just whoop me so I can go next door and take care of my comics. And he did. He kept up his end of the bargain. Start of round 4, there was a raffle at my shop. So what my shop does for every pre-release is they will raffle off some door prizes. In this case, it was a series of playmats that were drawn by Kim, who works at Common Ground Games, which is really, really cool, and I was super excited to see that. But I don't need playmats. I don't have a lot of playmats anymore, but I don't need any more. I don't need any playmats, right? Yeah. So I was actually ready to buy more raffle tickets, because you can buy them 3 for $5, until I realized it was playmats and then the grand prize, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to buy any. So I just had the 1 raffle ticket that you get for playing in the pre-release.
Right.
So they drew the 3 playmats, and then they draw for a box of Ravnica Allegiance, and you can't obviously get it until the set's released. But I won the box. Might as well. One raffle ticket.
Right on.
The box.
Nice.
So I was very excited about that. Common Ground Games, thank you for a free box of Ravnica Allegiance. Very cool. Just very cool thing. So at that point, I won the...
you feel like you won the pre-release. Yeah.
I literally won the pre-release. Yeah, it wasn't like feel like. Oh,
how many packs do you get for going undefeated? Oh, 10. Okay, well, I got 36.
Yeah, right. So that was freaking sweet, and then in my pity pack for going 1-3, because I lost to my opponent Ari in round 4, my pity pack was a Domri in there, so I was like, okay, good pity.
Yeah.
So overall, it was a great experience, even though I went 1-3.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun, and super excited about the box. I'm going to go draft with the Texas Guild Mages tonight with Jeff Zandy, who y'all may know from frequent appearances on the show when I was doing it with Steven, or from his many years as a judge and player and member of the Texas Guild Mages. So, David Williams, a member of Texas Guild Mages as well, in case you didn't know that.
So here's a question. Well, first a statement. I'm terrible at Limited. I feel like I always have so much trouble, and I don't know if it's the deck building part or just the playing part, because it's such a different kind of skill. I think it's a lot about creature combat. But here's just a question, because I've listened to the Lords of Limited podcast on Star City, and I feel like when they're talking, it seems like the way they discuss game situations, they basically, it's almost like they always have removal. And I'm like, when I build my decks, I put all the removal in, and sometimes that's 1 or 2 cards. And I feel like that. So the question I have is, do you hold your removal for potential bombs, or do you use it on the first kind of threat or threatening creature that feels like it's worthwhile? Because I will sit there with removal in my hand and get hit for 18 damage from a 2/1 because I'm like, I'm not using it on that. I just assume that they're going to have something amazing or something big at some point.
You have to look at what their plan is, and you have to look at what your plan is. You have to look at the cards in your hand, see how your game's going to play out.
Yeah.
If you don't remove that creature, because you could probably if they got a 2/1 hitting you 9 times, where was your 3/3? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like where's the 1/4 that you can, like, where's your Senate courier or whatever? The 1/4 flyer. Where's that? Stick your flyer, and then they got to outclass it.
Right.
Like, I will sit there. I was playing the blue red Terramander Drake's deck in block on Arena in the brief time. I wish block was on there longer. It was a lot of fun. A lot of Gates decks though, not as fun. But yeah, I can beacon bolt some things, but I can't beacon bolt a 13/13 Gate Crasher Ram. That's just not going to happen. So you're sitting. I have a Terramander. I played on turn 1, right? And then I'm holding up counter magic, basically, until they deal with the Terramander. So I'm just like, swing 1, 1, 1, and they're not dealing with it. I'm like, fine. I was like, I will hit you. I was saying it on the stream. I was like, I will hit you for 1 20 times if I have to. I do not care. I will just sit there and hit you for 1 20 times. And meanwhile, I got a handful of counter magic. What are you gonna do? You gonna play something? Counter, you know?
Right.
But anyway, it's just about what you can do. And yeah, sometimes you just have that one creature, and if they don't want to deal with it, they're just gonna eat it. Yeah. Right? Like that's why you got to eventually kill a Viashino Pyromancer.
Sure.
You know, what a dorky little creature, but you know, if it gets in for 4, they just paid 2 mana for 4.
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, crap. You know, it's like you're kind of screwed here. You don't want to waste your removal on it, but you got to. So really, you got to look at what your plan is, what their plan is.
Sure.
You know, if it looks like their plan is just going to kill you with that 2/1 because you're not dealing with it, then you got to deal with the 2/1, I guess. Because it's better to die to whatever they like, die to what random thing they might have in their hand than the thing that's killing you.
Yeah.
You know, like because they might not have the thing that you are scared of.
I know the answer isn't exactly straightforward, just like easy answer. It's context dependent and everything, but it always feels like, you know, listening to that discussion, the discussions that they have, they're like, oh, if you double block, they're going to remove, you know, one of the blockers. And I'm just like, that never comes up for me. I guess maybe my opponents never double block, but if they do, I never have the removal. Like that's never happening.
Right.
I just feel like I'm never in those situations, and it must be, at least in part, due to my own decisions. But
are you talking about sealed or draft here? Because in draft's a totally different animal, obviously. You know
sure,
what I mean?
Yeah. I think I was just speaking limited in general, and
sure.
Yeah. But if you are interested in Limited, I think they're another great Limited podcast in addition to the the tried and true classic Limited resources.
Yeah, which is what I've been devouring the last day or so, devouring their Ravnica Allegiance set reviews. But yeah, I want to check out Lords of Limited myself because I just don't know what podcasts are around now because we've been gone for a while. So I'm just kind of like, hey, I know. You know, Turn 1 Thoughtsees is posting stuff on Twitter, so hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah, shout out to Turn 1 Thoughtsees.
Yeah, but I don't play Modern, so I don't listen to them, you know what I mean? But it's not that they're not great, because they are.
Yeah, I actually did want to mention them just because why not? Turn 1 Thoughtsees, Zach and Aaron, they're one of my favorite podcasts because they talk about Modern, and that's my favorite format. But yeah, just wanted to give those guys a shout out because if you like Modern, check them out, Turn 1 Thoughtsees.
Oh, yeah, and just one more thing I want to talk about. I went and played in a draft on Sunday to pick up my box because, I couldn't pick it up until the set was released. And while I was waiting for the draft to start, because it was a draft at 2, and I was like, well, I'm picking up a box. I might as well hang out and draft. I went 3-0, by the way, and I realized at the end of the draft that I had reflective sunglasses on my neck the entire time. So my opponents could probably see my entire hand every single game. Still went 3-0. Thank you very much. But one thing I noticed when I was sorting the seal pool, because I decided to sort by guilds, and instead of strictly by color and then by guild, like I was actually just even mixing the red, like the monocolor cards in with the guilds if it had the guild symbol, just to help my deck building.
Right.
And when I was looking, I was looking at the watermarks on the cards as I'm sorting, and I noticed that Ethereal Absolution doesn't have an Orzhov watermark. It has a Planeswalker symbol watermark. And next to the collector number on the bottom, it says Story Spotlight. And then on the right-hand side, it says MTGstory.com, which honestly I thought was just super cool because I've never seen anything like that before. And I don't know if they've done that for anything else prior. But the MTGstory.com does take you to the Ravnica Allegiance featured story and basically the storyline page of Wizards.com.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic that they put that on the cards because I never noticed it. Maybe, it's just a blind spot at this point where you kind of ignore the borders of the cards.
Right. It's the only card I've seen with it so far, and I haven't looked to see if there are others.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there are others, at least more in Ravnica Allegiance, if this is the first set they've tried doing it. But just the idea of giving people kind of a heads up that, hey, you can read more about this particular the event being depicted in the artwork on our website, and actually having a direct link to the storyline page is great, because I, for a long time, was a huge fan of the Magic storyline, and going back to like the late '90s, I would read all those books, the Dark and the Ice Age and the whole Urza block, all that kind of stuff.
Brothers War.
Yeah, Brothers War. I am actually rereading the Brothers War right now.
I'm sure you are. You probably read that book like 20 times.
I mean, maybe not 20, but 5 is is not a stretch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that storyline. But yeah, so I think it's great that they are showing people that, hey, there's more to the game than just the game itself. So I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read issue 1 of the Chandra comic, but I'm glad to see that they're doing that too. That's a whole other episode, though. We've done story. We've nerded out on this a bunch.
For sure. So yeah, let's jump into discussing new standard. Last weekend we had Star City Games Indianapolis, our first showcase of the new standard, and it was kind of surprising because I think going into the event, the big scary polls of the format were mono red on one side and Wilderness Reclamation on the other side, and neither of those decks made top 8. Just to qualify that statement, that doesn't mean the decks aren't good. It just means that I think in the case of mono red, people were prepared for it and maybe even over prepared for it. And in the case of Wilderness Reclamation, I think that deck has yet to be figured out entirely. So I think it still needs some tuning, but I think that's going to be a big player in the format in the next few weeks. I mean, maybe even starting this weekend in Baltimore. Star City has a team open, and one of the formats, of course, is standard. And I imagine they're going to be highlighting that quite a bit, especially if they see some innovative decks. But I think the breakout deck of the tournament was a Sultai build, and it's kind of a stretch to call it Sultai because it's really just the Golgari decks that we had from the previous format, and they're splashing Hydroid Krasis. Mostly, some other decks are splashing blue for Krasis plus Hadana's Climb, and I've seen Hostage Taker in some lists, but the main card is Hydroid Krasis, and you could literally, if you had a Golgari deck, just pick up some dual lands and some Hydroid Krasis and make some cuts, and you've got basically the best performing deck of the weekend, or at least one of the best performing decks. And I think this is a deck that's going to stick around. This isn't just a week 1 deck.
Oh no, this is a good deck. This is solid.
It's got so much value because, of course, Golgari already had that. You have cards like Chupacabra come in and kill something, and then they use they chump block with it, and then they get it back with Finality and Memorial to Folly, and now they've got Hydroid Krasis just to add to that value. And I mean, if there's a breakout card of the weekend, it's Hydroid Krasis.
No doubt. The reality of Standard, especially as the red player, is that the second you see an Overgrown Tomb, any 3 damage spell you have has to stay in your hand until Wildgrowth Walker is dealt with.
Yeah.
Like, there is no, like, it changes your turn 1 Overgrown Tomb tapped, changes your entire game plan, or at least shapes your entire game plan, because you don't know what your game plan is.
Right.
Well, your game plan is 20 to the face, of course. But,
right on.
But seeing that Overgrown Tomb, you're like, oh, okay, I need to deal with Wildgrowth Walker at all costs. So Hydroid Krasis is just another pain in the ass life gain card that keeps a body in the air and draws them a bunch of cards. It really makes me like Active Treason out of the sideboard for mono red. I will say that. Oh
yeah, I mean, at least you get the body, but unfortunately you don't get the the life gain or the cards.
But they actually lose. Yeah, but I'm saying they actually go down in life because they only gained half of that, and then you can deal it back plus the other half.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Active Treason is pretty. You don't see it all the time, but I feel like when you do see it, it's usually a blowout.
I feel like there's going to be 3 in my sideboard if I play red at Dallas.
So
because Hydra Crisis is the only flyer in the deck.
Okay. Yeah, and that's great. I mean, unless they have 2, in which case you're probably still in good shape, because if they trade Crisis for Crisis,
take the bigger one. Yep.
Yeah, take the big right.
Always take the bigger one.
Good rules to live by. So I guess what have you been playing? I know you just mentioned the red deck, so let's talk about the versions of red that you've been playing. And have you tried any other? Have you tried any other builds?
Versions. I've tried so many because they're so gunning for red right now on Arena. I really want to see the the actual metagame numbers from Best of One. I would like to see just how much is red and just how warped Best of One is by red, because you see decks on there that are like just pure life gain decks, and I'm like, that can't be a real deck. That can't be a deck that you're actually going to see at a tournament,
right?
Like the turn 2 Dawn of Hope. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Did you really just play Dawn of Hope main deck? Oh my god!
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the format for Best of One is warped. I've been trying a couple different things. So, like I said, I kind of just, sort of deliberately scrubbed out of my pre-release because I just wanted to play New Standard. And I have Mono Red built. I had it built, from the previous format. So I wanted to try it with some of the new cards, Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics being the main ones. I've kind of settled into a build that is really similar to what Austin Yost has been playing. So Austin's list is the stock build that I've been looking at. You get 4 Fanatical Firebrand, Runaway Steamkin, Viashino Pyromancer, Goblin Chain Whirler, and then you got Shock, Lightning Strike, I'm trying to remember all the cards, Wizard's Lightning, Skewer the Critics. So what is that? That's 9 times 4, so 36 cards. I'm missing one then. Anyway, he runs 18 lands, 2 Flame of Keld in the place of those other 2 lands, and then the 40 kind of obvious burn spells that everybody's running, and I can't think of, that one of the cards. But he was saying how, because of Arena's Shuffler, it's you kind of tend to get a better opening hand than you might in paper, or even on Moto. And so he felt like he could cut 2 lands and play Flame of Keld. But in paper, he recommended playing 20 land. And so I think this makes a lot of sense. So this is the kind of build. These are the kind of builds I've been playing with. I did try cutting the Chain Whirlers for 4 copies of Risk Factor. I've also tried cutting the Steamkins for 4 copies of Risk Factor. And I've been having a lot of success with basically those builds. Experimental Frenzy might be the card that you would think I was forgetting about, but I have not been playing Frenzy at all.
Yeah.
With Light Up the Stage, that's the card. I didn't mention Light Up the Stage. So with Light Up the Stage and Risk Factor, if you do play Risk Factor, I think you've got enough in terms of card advantage. I've been having more success with that deck than any other. I also built Azorius. That's fun. Yeah, go ahead, sing it.
Azorius, thank you.
But the other card that, as I mentioned before, Wilderness Reclamation, I think I had to try it.
Right.
And I don't like it. I don't like playing with it.
I can see that. I mean, I can understand not liking it because I just don't think it's... everybody's freaking out about it. I don't know. I don't really think it's a real card. I mean, I get why people are excited about it, for sure. But, you tap out for that. I'm like, I'm going to deal 9 to your face while you're tapped out, you make it to untap, but you're at 3. And you're going to counter this spell, and I'm going to cast this spell.
Right.
And die, right?
Well,
okay.
Maybe I'm building the deck wrong. Maybe I'm just getting unlucky. I've built the first version I built was basically blue-white splashing green so I could play Wilderness Reclamation. So it made sense with the addendum spells. You get precognitive premonition or whatever the heck that card is called. And you get to play Teferi and untap all of your lands and have counter spells open and all that. And that's fine, but you are splashing a third color, and I've kind of felt like am I even making good use of this card? Is Wilderness Reclamation kind of not really worth the card in this deck because it's really I'm fine, playing my Teferi and untapping 2 lands and countering the spell they play. That is working for me. Am I getting enough out of the splash? So I tried playing like a Simic version. That one at least has more consistency, but it feels like it's all air. That's kind of like the way it feels to me. Like I'm going, I'm fogging your attacks, and I'm drawing cards with Growth Spiral and playing lands, and I'm like Wilderness Reclamation, untap.
This is going.
Fog. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just like, I have all this mana. Well, guess what? Growth Spiral. I'll get there. Hold on.
Okay. I'm so excited about it.
Well, I mean, I just feel like the whole deck is so much air and not enough in terms of win conditions. And
where's the beef is what you're trying to say. Beef?
Right. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I can ramp into a Wilderness Reclamation. Now I have all the mana and nothing to spend it on. And you mentioned, of course, I mean, you, the listener, are screaming, Hydroid Krasis, right? And that's awesome, right? If you have your Krasis and you tap and you get to draw a bunch of Growth Spirals and lands and fogs, like, great. They kill your Krasis, and then you are drawing more fogs and Growth Spirals.
But I say it's not an instance. It's not like you can use the Wilderness Reclamation to really capitalize.
No, well, you tap out for it on your turn, then untap and have all your instants available. That's the
True.
thing there. So, I don't know. I don't like it. And I played a game the other day, and it just came down to it was against kind of an Esper mill strategy. So that's not one I've seen before. But they milled my Hydroid Krasis. I only have one in the deck, so that was easy. I don't have more, and I didn't want to waste the wild cards on a card that I wasn't sure I was going to play with yet. So that was just kind of like in there. But I have 4 Nexus of Fate in the deck, and they milled me to the point where my last 4 cards were Nexus of Fate. So I just kept taking the turns, and I sat there for, 10 minutes just casting Nexus of Fate. Wilderness Reclamation was there, but it didn't need to be because it was just untapping my lands at my end step. And then I'd take my next turn, drawing Nexus of Fate and casting it again. And I just thought maybe my opponent would concede because I was just taking all the turns.
They
didn't. I just conceded. I didn't want to be like too much of a jerk. I mean, sitting there for 5 to 10 minutes was already kind of.
But you needed to get your quest. Like I said, you can't get tilted about what your opponent's doing because it might seem foolish, but they might be just trying to get to their quests.
Right, and that was true. I had to cast 30 blue or I think it was blue or green spells. I don't know. But blue was one of them. And so I was like, I just basically cast Nexus of Fate 30 times. And it was funny. Like, I was very amused. So I had fun, and my opponent didn't have to do anything. So, I mean, they didn't have to keep clicking Nexus of Fate and then clicking past turn and then clicking Nexus of Fate and clicking past turn like I did. Right. I was the one being very active. He or she could just sit there and watch this, me doing absolutely nothing. I had no way to win except for them to concede. So they won. It was just I made them pay for it a little bit. I'm like, you milled my win condition. This is what you get. You have to wait.
Right.
And it worked out.
I'll tell you what I want to do with Wilderness Reclamation, right? And I was already trying to look up certain things, and I learned something that I didn't like. But I just want to play Gruul and use Nexus of Fate and Electro Dominance to like cheat out creatures EOT and face them. Like, really? No, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I was literally
basically get another combat step, right? Like,
I texted Jeff and I was like, Jeff, if I have 10 power worth of creatures on the board, does Ghalta, is its converted mana cost 12 or 2? But unfortunately it's still 12. So
wait, I'm missing what you're.
Ghalta is the 12/12 trample dinosaur that costs 1. It costs.
Oh no, you're working on Electro Dominance Ghalta. I get it. Okay. That's
what I'm saying. I was like looking at that, thinking about, can I cast Electro Dominance and drop a 12/12? I was like, okay, they did not do deal 2 to any target 12/12 for 4. They didn't put that in the format.
Yeah,
but they did put Nullhide Ferox in the format, so you could do 4 damage, drop a 6/6 end of turn, and you're already halfway there.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got an idea kicking around for a mega green-red ramp deck. Does that sound like on brand? But I'm kind of kicking that around as a way to abuse Wilderness Reclamation, but I haven't actually tried to put the deck together. One deck I did put together because I was getting so frustrated with, I don't know with what exactly, but I was just getting frustrated with like the Drakes and things that were just outclassing, and the green deck, like with the 6/6s just outclassing my creatures so fast. So I was like, what if it doesn't matter if my creatures get through to the opponent? So I started looking at Cavalcade of Calamities, and I went down this real weird path. Oh, that was the main reason why I started looking at Cavalcade is because I was looking at Skirk Prospector. Because the one thing that I have to say about the Esper deck is that the Esper deck wins against the red deck because of its removal spells, not because of its counter spells or anything else. Because they have just -2/-2 gain 2 life, and they have exile target creature gain 2 life. Those are the reasons why that deck wins. So every time, and I'm going to say this, and I shouldn't say this because I want you to do it wrong when I'm playing you, but every time you counter one of my creature spells, I get happier. Because letting my creatures resolve and then using your gain life spells that are in your hand, they're always in your hand. You might as well have just 46 copies of the -2/-2 Moment of Craving. The deck basically just runs 46 copies of that, or at least it feels that way. You should be using those on my creatures, countering my burn spells, because those are the reasons why you win the game. That incidental life gain along the way is how they win the game. So Fanatical Firebrand is key because you never attack with it. You just hold it up. And sometimes they'll try to waste their spell on it and you sacrifice it. And I was like, well, I like that. What else can I do to kind of make those cards dead cards? And I was like, well, Skirk Prospector. Skirk Prospector gives me another way to sacrifice Goblin Chain Whirler. So if they try to Vraska's Contempt my Chain Whirler, sacrifice it for a red, they don't gain any life.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So then I started going a little harder, and I was like, okay, well, we're looking at goblins now. So I started looking at Tin Street Dodger, which is a 1/1 haste, and then you can pay a red, and it can't be blocked except for creatures with Defender, which nobody runs creatures with Defender. It's unblockable for a red.
Right.
And then I started looking at other things like that, and I looked at Goblin Instigator, and I was like, well, what's the payoff here? Like, you got Legion Warboss and all these other things. And I was like, Trashmaster just seems awful. I don't know. I don't like it. Although now, the current Goblins list I have together runs Trashmaster and doesn't run Cavalcade of Calamities, which was the card I started looking at. Then I started looking at Rigging Runner. And the funniest thing is, with the Cavalcade deck, sometimes you play the Rigging Runner pre-combat. Rigging Runner, if you don't know, is 1/1 first strike for a red. Raid enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter if you attacked with a creature this turn. I made my opponents so confused, probably. I'm like, I have Fanatical Firebrand on the board. I play a Rigging Runner, and then I swing for 1. They're like, what the hell is this guy doing? Then I play Cavalcade of Calamities, and it's like, and then I play double Cavalcade, and all of a sudden it's a 3/3, So I started looking at ways to abuse that. I even had the Goblin Gathering in there at one point, but that got cut because it was just not fast enough.
Yeah.
It was awful, but I tried it because
right.
I was just trying things. And there's something there. And I even went as far as to try a different deck. I tried a green-white tokens list, basically splashing red for Cavalcade of Calamities, right? Mm-hmm. And that gets interesting because there's a fun fact. Adanto Vanguard triggers Cavalcade.
Oh, that's great, yeah, because it's one at the point of attacking, yeah.
When it attacks, until the second it's turned sideways, both the triggers happen. You know what I mean?
Right, and you can stack them in a way that...
attacking. Yeah. Well, it's not even a stack.
Oh, no, okay, it just happens.
It's only attacking. It just happens. It's just as long as it's attacking, it's a 3/1. So... the moment it is considered an attacker, it gets +2/+0. But for the split second before it's considered an attacker, it attacks, and then it triggers that the card.
That's pretty cool. I wonder if that works in Modern and Legacy with like Ensnaring Bridge. I guess it does. I mean, that's kind of a cool way to get around Ensnaring Bridge.
Yeah, it does work with Ensnaring Bridge, unless they have, zero.
Right,
cards.
But I mean, if they have one card in hand and you're like, okay, attack with my 1/1. Guess what? It's 3/1. That I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of that, but I hadn't thought about it because I hadn't thought about it until you just mentioned that
Right.
works with Cavalcade of Calamity.
But I just basically made like a green-white tokens deck and jammed Cavalcade in there so I could cast March of the Multitudes and things like that, and like Saproling Mutation, and even I've turned Incubation Druid sideways. Not adapted.
Right.
I'm like, swing for 0, you take 2.
Right.
Because I have 2 Cavalcades out. It's weird. But ultimately, I wound up deciding that the deck just didn't need Cavalcade. It was just a pet card. So I cut it and just made it green-white because it was way more lean. I had enough games where I only drew red-white lands where I went, I'm done with this. I was like, I don't have green mana in my green-white deck. This is bad. I need to cut it. So I messed with that.
So just because you brought it up, I think we need to talk about one of the more interesting red decks that I've seen over the weekend. I was watching coverage and I watched this game. I don't even remember who the opponent was, but Paul Spears was playing a mono red Phoenix list at Star City Indy. He ended up in 44th place, so not too bad. But this list, I haven't got a chance to try it yet, but I kind of can't wait to.
I have tried it.
It's really built around Gutter Snipe and Electrostatic Field, being able to basically every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you get a free lightning bolt if you've got both of them on the board, and that's just saying if you have one of each. Right. Joe, I know I sent you the link. We're going to have to put it in the show notes. He's playing against, I think, like a Bant mid-range deck. Is that right? I know you just watched it. Like and his opponent has a pretty good board. He passes the turn. He's at 18. His opponent is at 18. And Paul has like a Gutter Snipe, I think, on the board. And then, was it a Runaway Steamkin?
Yes.
And he just kills his opponent from 18.
I actually think his opponent was at 20.
Okay, well, I think I'm 18 or 20, either way. It's impressive either way, and it's just.
Killed him from 20, yeah.
I mean, he's got 4 Arclight Phoenix, 4 Electrostatic Field, 4 Gutter Snipe, 4 Runaway Steamkin, 18 lands, and then he's got Lightning Strike, Risk Factor, Shock, Crash Through, and Warlord's Fury, which of course are a little bit embarrassing, but they work in this kind of deck when you're casting a spell, getting another bonus out of it, and then drawing a card. Hold on, I have to stop. Hold on.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, I'm recording too. So.
All right. Okay, so we just had a little family emergency there. Joey needed to take care of. But I just want to say right now, while we stopped recording, I started playing the Mono Red Phoenix deck, and I'm in the middle of a game right now, and I just cast a Light Up the Stage with a Gutter Snipe and Electrostatic Field. They were at 20 at the start of this turn. I'd already cast a Tormenting Voice, discarding an Arclight Phoenix, right?
Right.
It's mono red. They have 2 Runaway Steamkin and a Firebrand on the board.
Okay.
So then I cast Tormenting Voice, discarding Phoenix with a field and a Gutter Snipe on the board. And then I cast a Light Up the Stage, took him to 14. Now I'm about to cast. I think I'm going to cast a Shock or the other Light Up the Stage. I think I'll just cast the Shock. Let's kill their Steamkin. And that'll deal 3 to their heads. They're at 11. This is all in one turn with 4 mana, right?
Right.
So that just happened.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that it's a good deck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, and now I just got an Arclight Phoenix out of my graveyard.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have that card also.
Yeah, and I'm taking them to 8 right now.
Yeah, I can't wait to try this deck.
That was 12 damage in one turn, and now my board is Arclight Phoenix, Electrostatic Field, Gutter Snipe.
So, yeah, it sounds like a really cool deck. I know I was going over the deck list when I had to briefly stop. But yeah, Lightning Strike, Warlord's Fury, Crash Through, and then Joe already mentioned some of the other cards. Risk Factor, Shock, Light Up the Stage, Skewer the Critics, Tormenting Voice. But
Tormenting Voice, yeah. Tormenting Voice is key. Like, at first I was trying to convince myself that I didn't need, what do you call it? That I didn't need Arclight Phoenix, that I could just go even more spell heavy. But now, once I drew a Tormenting Voice with no Arclight Phoenix to discard, I was like, never mind. I definitely need it.
Oh, well, yeah. I would say if you don't have the Phoenix, then you've got 8 slots because I would cut the Tormenting Voice.
Right.
In fact, I'd maybe up to like 4 Risk Factor, maybe more Lightning Strikes. I don't know. That's what I'd do if I weren't using Phoenix. But because I think we have to link it in the show notes just because of that game. He kills his opponent from 18. Game 2, he wins through Shalai and Lyra. Which to me is just like insane. Like the amount of hate. You've got Lyra giving Shalai lifelink and +1/+1. Shalai giving his opponent hexproof, but electrostatic field and gutter snipe don't target. It's just deals 2 damage to each opponent or deals 1 damage to each opponent. So there's no targeting. So the hexproof doesn't even matter in that case. Sure, he can't lightning strike to the face or shock to the face, but it didn't even matter. So I encourage you to check out this deck on Coverage. Now, again, he came in 44th. Not bad, not great. I don't know what the bad matchups are. Of course, we've been playing a lot of best of 1, and I know we were going to talk about best of 1 versus best of 3, but given our time constraints and my current situation with my kid right now who is not feeling well, we're going to have to wrap up, but we'll save it for another episode as always. Literally, as always, I think we've been saving this for like 3 episodes. So
I've had this. We did this poll like a month ago.
Yeah, it's not even going to matter by the time we talk about it, but we'll get to it.
And some of the stuff, actually, it's been so long that some of the stuff on my notes has actually changed. Because I was like, why isn't best of 3 on the ladder? Best of 3 in Constructed is on the ladder, or will be as of February 1st. Or I guess the season ends January 31st.
I think. Yeah, I think so.
Will actually be on the ladder. So.
Yeah, so it'll be a little less relevant then, but we'll talk about it a little bit at least because I think it's an interesting discussion. But for now, I think we're going to wrap things up. And next episode, I know we will be discussing our experiences at 2 Star City Opens coming up. Mine in Baltimore this weekend and yours in Dallas next weekend. So our next episode will be just following SCG Dallas, and we'll talk to you guys about our experiences there.
Yeah.
As always, you guys can get in touch with us on Twitter. We definitely love the feedback and the interaction. So if you've got comments, if you want to tell us we're stupid, that's cool too. At least just be descriptive in how you tell us, be more constructive with your feedback, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Why should I die in a fire? Why specifically do you wish me to die in a fire?
Exactly. So, yeah, I think that's it for this week. Thanks for listening. As always, we are YMTG Taps.
Stop bitching, start brewing.